If you're someone who would rather avoid conflict at all costs, but it's hurting your relationships because things aren't getting resolved, we've got solutions.
So many solutions.
Instead of this, try that. Mended Light. Avoidant attachment styles often lead to avoidant conflict resolution styles. So an avoidant attachment style generally develops if your parents or caretakers were not loving or nurturing or supportive and may even have been negligent. So you just learn to take care of yourself. That being vulnerable, that being emotionally expressive is punished. And so you just bury your feelings and dial everything down.
Right. Well, and that absolutely is the environment that it could have happened in. But regardless of the environment that it happened in, basically you came to quite often the unconscious conclusion of it's not safe for me to have emotions.
Right.
And so the way I create emotional safety in my life is by not having them.
Yeah.
Like, however the circumstance was created.
Not expressing them,
Yeah.
absolutely. Especially when it comes to anger or sadness or anything perceived as negative. It's like, yeah, if I can be happy and chill, then people will like me. But if I am sad or angry or stressed, I've learned that pushes people away, so I'm not even going to feel or express it. So we've got some tips, because here's the issue. It served you maybe in a different relationship or when you were younger, when you were surrounded by people who would punish you for vulnerability or who would criticize or shame you for your emotions. But if you're trying to have a healthy...
Or even if you were just met with judgment.
Yeah.
Like, if you were just the way you are and you were met with judgment and you're like, oh, this isn't safe.
Right.
It's not safe for me to be who I am and to feel what I feel, so therefore I'm just not going to feel it.
So numbing, stuffing, disengaging may have served you as far as emotional or social or literal survival before, but maybe now you're older and you're trying to connect with people who are actually available for this sort of thing, for emotions, for vulnerability, for accountability, and maybe you don't know how. Or there's inevitably conflict, as there always is in relationships.
Right. Well, it doesn't feel safe. To connect in a secure way, in a healthy way, does not feel emotionally safe. And quite often, unless you've learned principles around healthy relationships outside of the environment where you learned the shutting down and avoidant behavior patterns, you don't even know that that's what you're experiencing. Right. Because like all of us, all we know is our own life experience, right? Like, I don't know what it's like to live a completely different life growing up in a completely different home. And so, like, people use the word normal, and it's like, well, what is normal? And it's like, well, normal is whatever my life experience is until you grow up and you are in other environments and you form other relationships and you're talking with people and you're like, wait, that's not normal. But it was my normal, right? Or it was your normal.
Right. So now at this point, the withdrawing, the disengaging, the shutting down, the numbing, what was normal isn't serving you. You're not resolving conflicts. You're not having conversations with your partner or with others where things are healed, patched up, and you grow closer together with greater understanding of how to be there for each other. That doesn't happen. And so your relationships start to die on the vine. Instead of shutting down, try...
I'm afraid if I don't shut this down, it's going to become a big fight. But I also know if I do that, it will leave you feeling abandoned. What can we do differently right now? Because it's the avoidant that tends to shut down or withdraw, and then it's the anxious that tends to pursue, right? And so when the avoidant withdraws, then the anxious feels abandoned. And so in that statement, the avoidant is saying, here's what I want to do. Like, here's what I want to do to create emotional safety for me.
Right.
Because this is what I used to have to do to create emotional safety. And I know in doing that, you're going to feel abandoned. You're going to feel insecure. You're going to feel anxious. Recognizing both our needs, what can we do instead?
Yeah, and having that conversation and deciding it together. And it's a beautiful demonstration of understanding the other person's needs while expressing your own, so it doesn't become lopsided and just about what one person wants or needs. So that's one option. Another option, instead of shutting down, try this. Everything in me just wants to fix this, but since I don't know how, I can feel myself getting overwhelmed and tuning out. I want to let you in emotionally so you know what's going on for me, and maybe together we can try something new.
Okay, so I love the point that this vulnerable statement makes. And this is so often true for avoidant personalities. They want to fix things. They feel like they should be able to do it on their own because of their hyper independence. Like they should be able to do everything on their own.
Sure.
Can myself do it?
And they're like, relationships aren't that hard. This shouldn't be that hard. And quite often they are more task-oriented people, right? So they're very good at accomplishing things. And so they're like, I want to fix this, but I've tried fixing it so many times and it hasn't worked. So now my solution is just to shut down. And to express that is like very real and very raw and creates that connection with the other person.
Connection to others is incredibly important.
So next one, instead of withdrawing or shutting down, try this.
I know we haven't been able to do this well in the past, and you worry you aren't going to be heard. Your concerns matter to me, and I want to try and meet you. At the same time, I feel unseen in circumstances like this. Can we start over?
I think accountability is everything in relationships. So leading with, I know we haven't been able to do this well in the past, and you feel like you aren't going to be heard. The implication in the statement, you feel like you aren't going to be heard, is an acknowledgement of, I haven't made you feel heard in the past. Like I'm owning that. I want to create a new dynamic now. And saying it deliberately, specifically, pointedly like that is part of setting an intention. It's part of setting a tone for the conversation to follow. You say about parenting, and I think it's true about any relationship, that it's all about posturing, right? It's all about setting the scene of, this is how I'd like to have this conversation. And leading with that accountability, leading with an acknowledgement of the other person's pain, leading with a statement of intent of, I recognize in the past this is how I've done it. I want to do it differently, and I see the need to do it differently. Let's talk about how, and then let's do it, is a very healthy mental reset, especially in a high emotion situation when you want to just withdraw.
Yeah. Well, and all of this languaging and these phrases are so supportive, but they're only going to be supportive when you're in a calm state, right? It's the 5 steps to follow in conflict, which the very first one is to stop and calm down.
Well, it's the second one.
Oh,
first is to recognize
right.
the need
That's
to
true.
stop and calm down. But the first action you take is stopping and calming down.
Would you calm down, slow down, come down here, sit down, and put that down?
So these have been tips for people with avoidant attachment style when they feel like withdrawing and shutting down. Now we're going to pivot slightly into, what if you're the other person? What if you're interacting with somebody who is shutting down, who is withdrawing, and you want to be heard and you want to get them to engage without triggering a pursue-withdraw dynamic or making them feel attacked? What do you do? Well, instead of attacking, judging, shaming, insisting, try this.
This is my absolute favorite. Okay, so I'm sensing some distance from you, and it's uncomfortable for me. I feel shut out. When it feels safe, I hope you'll bring it up to me. I'm not going to pressure you, but I'll be here when you're ready. And once again, these are all like breaking the negative cycle. And you ultimately are the one that gets to decide, like, is this a negative cycle?
Yeah.
Right? Like, it's not us or for anyone else to be like, well, what you're doing in your relationship isn't working, right? If it's not working for you, that's when you're like, oh, this is a negative cycle. Or, like I like to use, a behavior pattern, right? And it's not serving me and it's not supporting me. And so it's so wonderful to look at the situation and be like, yes, this is a challenge. I understand why it's a challenge. We all came by it honestly. What can I do to interrupt and then repair?
If you've been following this little mini-series on Instead of This, Try That, we started with what to do instead of criticism, right? Which is bringing up a concern. Then we went into what to do if you are anxiously attached. And if you find yourself pursuing and really needing to be soothed and being kind of, this is a judgmental word maybe, but a little pushy, right? And I only say this because it takes one to know one, all right?
Well, you're trying to create emotional security by holding the person close.
Yeah.
Right? While the avoidant is trying to create emotional security by having space there.
Right.
Like, it's almost comical. right? Almost.
Well,
if
and-
it wasn't real.
So we talked about anxious, we talked about avoidant. In our next video, we're going to talk about what to do in a specific situation. If you are in an anxious avoidant pairing, which could be romantic, but could also be parent-child, sibling-sibling, friend-to-friend. But one of you is more anxiously attached, one of you is more avoidant, and a specific situation happens. What is each person's role to navigate it to a connected, wonderful place? So that's our next video. If you are avoidantly attached or you love someone who is, what did you learn from this video and how are you going to apply it? Let us know in the comments below. Until next time, folks.
Keep shining. We need your light.
Pew, pew.